It's over. I'm done. Getting ready to say goodbye to Big Blue right here. It's been a fun journey, but I won't miss you. Say goodbye. Say goodbye to your house, Sar. I owe you guys a video. Hey, will you stop eating my fucking shoe, dude? Jesus Christ. You already got me cussed on YouTube. We've been in the video for 2 seconds. I got to start this all over. I owe you guys a video. It's only been like a month and a half. But you know, life's been hectic. It's actually been a whirlwind. And that's why God created coffee. To help you survive these things. That and beer. Actually been toning down on the beer, but let's talk about what's happened. Seems like a nice peaceful spot to drink some coffee and talk about my life. Anyways, so long story short, I quit trucking. I started freight brokering because I failed at trucking, it seems, is the correlation on how that works. And it's been a doozy. So what happened is I'd been wanting to get out of the truck for a long time, which I believe I've shared in other videos. Not because I'm against trucking, but I started a trucking company. I didn't start a trucking company to drive a truck, and it sounds a little posh and like I'm above it, and I don't feel like I'm above it, but I don't. Being stuck in the truck for 70 hours a week wasn't quite exactly how I imagined spending my time. Maybe for a year or two, yes. But I wanted to scale a company. Unfortunately, I started a trucking company without a lot of experience in the industry. I had only been trucking for, well, I hadn't really even been trucking when I started. We'll get into all that. What happened in July was that my truck broke down again, the Kenworth, and it'd been doing well, and the rebuild on the motor was fine. I hadn't had too many issues. I had one issue with I was idling too much and not at a high RPM. I'd been idling at like 600 or 800 and should be doing long idles at 1,000 RPMs. And so they had to clean out my EGR. Okay, so truck had been doing well. Hadn't really had any issues with the motor. It's still, you know, it was a 2016 with 750,000 miles. So obviously there was other things that needed to be done to it. And I was grossing on average like $5,000, 5 to 6, normally closer to $5,000 a week. Taking home around 2. The company that I was leased on with, I was able to get them to give me a little bit more. So they were taking 10% plus for dispatching, plus billing me for insurance and registration and all that BS. They're a great company, old school. You know, I wouldn't say a lease opportunity is ever on your side, but it was pretty much fair. Being the fact that like I feel like for what they did, it was worth it. The dispatch fee was kind of high. Initially at 15% was really high. 10% was still high due to the fact they were billing me for everything else. But they were very helpful. Like anytime that I had an issue, like they were definitely willing to help and pay to fix things and all that. And I used that a couple times. Obviously they charged interest, so I tried to avoid that as much as possible. Got them paid off as quick as I could. But if I been able to have a more aggressive schedule than 3 weeks a month, probably would have done a little bit better. But because of the other things that I have going on in my life, I could only go out for 3 weeks at a time, and then I'd have to take a week off. And so that made it tough to be able to gross enough. So basically netting $200 to $2,500 a week. I was bringing home, what is that? Let's call it $6 to $7 grand a month. And then paying the truck, paying loan payments, and everything else. I was clearing maybe $1,000 a month. So after all the bills are paid, and that doesn't include any maintenance, possibly $1,500, $1,000 to $1,500. So oil change $500 even when I do it myself. So automatically every 2 months had to do an oil change, so that sunk in 33 to 50% of the profit. And then if there's anything major like what happened in July, then it just wipes it all out, and whatever. I don't need a lot of money to survive. I've got my life set up pretty well to be a minimalist, which makes things easy in that regard. However, it was a thin margin because I'd overextended myself previously with the company. So it got to the point in July. What happened, I think I did a video on this, but the exhaust in between the two parts of the DPF developed a hole, which melted a whole bunch of airlines at Defline, and I had to do some crazy on the road duct tape, zip tie, straw fixes to drive 300 miles to get it home. And then I parked it, and I was taking the month off anyways. So that was also another thing, is taking the month off. It's hard to pay the bills without driving the truck. And you still got insurance and all that to pay. And I'd been tossing around whether or not to call it quits on driving that truck. Dude, do you mind? So, let's see. Yeah, I had to Frankenstein the shit out of the truck to get home. Since I was taking the month off, wasn't making any money, it was already going to make it hard. I didn't want to borrow anything more from the company that I was leased on with. And I was just trying to look logistically at it and basically factoring in the total maintenance costs for the year on average. I mean, it was getting to the point where, well, the repairs I had to do to fix what was wrong with the truck was probably fairly easy. I mean, that exhaust pipe might have cost a little bit, but that could have been replaced. I could have done it. And then the def heater line, I could have replaced. The airlines, I could have replaced. They would have been a little bit more of a pain in the ass because they ran all the way down the frame rail. But all probably could have been fixed for like $500 to $1,000, probably closer to $1,000 if I did it myself. Wouldn't have been impossible. Probably would have taken me a week after I got the parts, a couple days maybe. But well, I've been doing the math. It's like, basically, if I continue to drive this truck with the bills that I have, I'm basically gonna drive this truck for free for 3 years. And as much as I love doing it, I mean, that is a very tough thing to do. Very, very tough thing to do in order to pay it all off that way. So for me, it just did not, it seemed like the universe saying it's time to call this quits. So I really wanted to stick it out and not quit on that, but ultimately I didn't have enough experience in the industry, so I made a lot of mistakes that were costly. I overextended myself trying to grow and scale too quickly, and ended up being over leveraged, not being able to create enough income to compensate for the bills that I had. So ultimately I said, okay, this is done, got to get rid of the truck. Tried to sell it, wasn't able to sell it for what I owed on it because I had a lease to own deal that I bought from the auction. So it really hurt. It was like a big punch in the gonads, to sell the truck. Well, to get rid of the truck. I did a voluntary repossession on it because I'd bought it for 44, sunk in 38 to do the motor, and probably another 2 to 3 grand worth of maintenance on it that I'd done in the meantime. Oh, and then brand new steer tires. So it had probably an additional 5 grand into the truck for $85,000. And but I didn't. The 44 was financed. I only put 11 down, made like 7 or 8 payments. So that's probably like 15 plus the 40. So looking at basically $50,000 just threw away right there. It's the biggest fucking punch in the balls I've ever had in my entire life. But it was either that or work for the next 3 years. And honestly, I can go make $50,000 back in like an eighth of that time. So you know what? I don't know why I would hang on to it. So that's what I did. Give it back, went to auction. I don't know what it sold for. Probably will still owe money on it. But ultimately we'll probably declare business bankruptcy on that and a couple of other things. So it sounds sad, but you know, honestly, it's all a learning opportunity. I don't regret any of it. I've learned a lot. And now we're moving on to freight brokering, which is learning a lot as well. I feel like having the industry knowledge of being on the truck side for 3 years will help me in that regard, to be fair with carriers, and to understand those pains when negotiating with shippers. And the reason I decided to go into freight brokering was because it's probably the only thing I could do besides go and drive a truck for someone else. And I don't want to work for someone else. I'm just stubborn like that, I guess. So we're going down a new journey of freight brokering. I have a broker friend that I ran for as Minuteman that I am now working as an agent for underneath his authority as a broker, and using that to build a book of business. And he is mentoring me and showing me the ropes, and it's gonna be fun. And it's definitely a grind. So that is the synopsis, basically what happened. I don't want to keep this video too long. Just wanted to share with you guys what happened. So ultimately, trucking is done. Like, Minuteman is done. It solely just exists now for tax purposes, and is been going out of business since December of 2022, and at the end of this year we'll be completely done. All of our trucks are gone. I have one trailer left that I am renting out to a friend who's doing Hotshot, and he's doing great because he's smart. He's only doing one truck and he's only driving himself, and he loves doing it, and that's the right reason to do it. Ultimately, if there's one thing I'd have to say, the industry sucks right now. It's probably the worst time in the industry since it was deregulated back in like the prehistoric era. And it's super overinflated because there's way too many drivers in popular fields like Hotshot and like non-CDL Hotshot. There's a shit ton of drivers because it's really easy to get into, just like dry van, a shit ton of really easy to get into, so there's a shit ton of people. So both those are super inflated. That's one of the reasons that rates are down. The other reason that rates are down is because there's a million brokers, but there's like 3 times more brokers than there needs to be, because there's people like me who fail at driving a trucking company and decide to become a broker, I guess. And that also creates a lot of competition, which just naturally drives rates down. And then there's also the fact that inflation is real. So shippers are tightening their belts because we're in a recession, even though no one wants to say it. We are. So shippers are tightening their belts, and they're not willing to pay what they've been paying, and they're definitely not willing to pay more, even though diesel's going through the roof. So I'd say if you're going to get involved, only do it if you like doing it. Make sure you're smart about how you do it. Don't over leverage yourself, and expect that you're going to be driving on the road for as long as that truck is going to survive, which is going to be 3 to 5 years, possibly 10 if you are willing to put the money into it. If you've never been in the industry before, go work for someone else. 100%. Go do it and gain the knowledge. Really figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it before you jump into it. Otherwise, you will learn the hard way, which financially is Hey guys, thanks for watching. That's my breakdown. I'm gonna do some more videos, explain in depth some of the other stuff, but I really appreciate your support. I know I'll get a lot of flack for going into brokering because everyone hates brokers. So we'll talk more about that in the future. But please help me make sure to feed my dog. Because his food is paid for by YouTube. So please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're interested in hearing me talk more and stare at the camera, please also hit the notification bell. You got any comments, questions, feedback? You need to take out your anger on me and tell me how I am the reason that the industry sucks. Please drop that down in the comments below. And I will see you on the next video.